Hello everybody, and welcome once again aboard the Hype Train. I of course am Sir Beardian, and today the menu is a delicious juicy steak. Let's start with a very awesome change. In C# Aurora, NPR ships consume fuel, and therefore require refueling. Huzzah! They also need to use the same refueling infrastructure as players and require the same time to refuel, allowing for technology differences. NPR tankers will move fuel from harvesters and populations with excess fuel to populations with logistical infrastructure that require fuel. As NPR ships become low on fuel, they will return to the nearest population or tanker that has fuel. NPR ships and fleets have a concept of mission-capable status, which is affected by a number of factors such as fuel status, damage status, and ordnance status. When an NPR fleet is very low on fuel, it will be unable to do anything except search for refueling stations. However, to avoid the NPR getting into any logic issues, NPR ships will still be able to move with zero fuel while they move to a refueling point. They should add more constraints to NPR deployment, add an interesting layer to NPR operations, and provide the player with a new way to attack NPRs, such as attacking their fuel supplies instead of their ships directly. While it isn't completely the same as players due to the search for fuel while empty concept, it's a very good trade-off between realism and avoiding any unforeseen logic issues. It should also be noted that I believe they do suffer a pretty hefty speed loss when they do actually run out of fuel. I forget what the exact percentage is, but they do slow down pretty badly. Now, we got a couple of buildings to talk about, and one of them is something that has been asked. How do you build ground units? Well, ground units are built at ground force construction complexes, which are essentially renamed ground force training facilities. They remain the same size as a research facility and now require 1 million population to operate, so you can't stick on an empty barren rock. The build rate for the complex starts at 250 build points per year and can be increased through research. For example, 500 BP per year is 8,000 research points and 1,000 BP per year is 60,000 research points. Numbers subject to change. These changes reflect the amount of effort that will be required to construct, train, and support the new ground forces. As we mentioned, the ground forces have potentially very scalable build points. So we'll see if we build entire formations or if we build per unit. If we build per unit, we could... I actually can foresee some issues where, for example, 1000 BP, where if you have a unit that's only like 20 BP, can you queue them up? Like, I would hate to have to, every single build cycle, have to go back and order another troop to add when potentially there might be, hundreds of troops in a formation. So, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how these actually get controlled and used. The other building is the Genetic Modification Center. Now, it's not new, but it is a change. They now produce 1 million conversions per year, which is 4 times what they did in VB6. They also require 250,000 workers, compared to their 0 in VB6. This also means, interestingly enough, that similar to terraforming stations, if you do not have any workers, you can't convert your population into a suitable genetic status that can handle that particular environment. So you have to convert them on a planet where you actually have workers. Speaking of workers are required to man a variety of facilities in C# Aurora. This is only required in game terms where there are sufficient workers to potentially require additional infrastructure in hostile conditions. For example, an automated mine does not have a worker requirement, even though in reality it may have a small workforce for maintenance. In these cases, it is assumed the installation itself provides sufficient accommodation for the small workforce. A secondary consideration here is micromanagement, in that it would not add to gameplay if every refueling station or mass driver required the transportation and housing of a few hundred workers, but it would add additional micromanagement. With that in mind, the following installations require workers. Forced labor construction camps and forced labor mining camps require 5,000. Construction factories, ordnance factories, fighter factories, fuel refineries, mines, conventional industry, maintenance facility, and financial centers require 50,000 workers. Terraforming installations, ground force construction facilities, and genetic modification centers require 250,000 workers. And research facilities and spaceports require 1 million workers. Infrastructure, deep space tracking stations, automated mines, military academies, sector commands, mass drivers, civilian mining complexes, refueling stations, naval headquarters, ordnance transfer stations, and cargo shuttle stations do not require workers. Shipyards have a different system for workers that we will cover at a later point. Now, we also have some changes to conventional starts. First of all, missile bases or ICBMs are gone, probably because PDCs no longer exist. The player now receives a 1,000-ton naval shipyard, 10,000-ton commercial shipyard, spaceport, a military academy, a naval headquarters, 1 deep space tracking stations, 5 maintenance facilities, conventional industry equal to 8 times the manufacturing population in millions, research facilities equal to 1/12 of the manufacturing population in millions. This is more research facilities than in VB6. For example, a starting population of 1 billion will have 1,600 conventional factories and 16 research facilities. Additionally, given the player starts with certain installations in a conventional start, it does not make sense to make additional construction for those installations dependent on Trans-Newtonian technology. The full list of the installations that can be constructed before Trans-Newtonian theory is researched are naval shipyard complexes, commercial shipyard complexes, so you can finally build those conventional ships before you leave conventional technology. Research facilities, so you can start ramping up your research output. Spaceports, ground force construction complexes, so we can start training those conventional troops. Military academies, naval headquarters, refueling stations, so we can fuel those conventional ships. Ordnance transfer stations, so we can arm them. Cargo shuttle stations, so we have freighters. Maintenance facilities, financial centers, deep space tracking stations, and infrastructure. We also have some changes to conventional industry itself. In VB6, conventional industry provided the same output as 0.1 construction factories, 0.05 refineries, and 0.1 mines. For C#, conventional industry provides the same output as 0.1 construction factories, 0.05 ordnance factories, 0.025 fighter factories, 0.05 refineries, 0.1 financial centers, and 0.15 mines. So it provides a little bit of factories, ordnance, fighters, refineries, finance, and mines all put together, compared to just factories, refineries, and mines. Now, a little bit of UI changes. First up, C# Aurora has an option to link all the open windows, so that when you change the current race in one window, all the other windows change to the same race. That's cool, especially if you're playing multiracial games. We also have some changes to the tactical map. C# does not have a starting menu bar in the same way as VB6. Instead, the tactical map is the main game window itself. Once the tactical map is open, however, both VB6 and C# have a similar issue. Assume you have the tactical map on maximize and you open the economics window. That window is now on top of the tactical map. Now you click the button on the tactical map to open the fleet window. While that is on top of the tactical map, the existing economics window is now behind the tactical map because clicking on the button gave the tactical map focus and therefore precedence over the existing economics window. Which means if you want to see both economics and fleet at the same time, you need to manually bring fleet to the front or move economics to a second monitor before clicking the fleet button. Therefore, C# now has an option called Keep Tactical in Background. While this is active, after pressing the toolbar button on the tactical map, the new window will open and then the tactical map will move to the background, leaving all other windows in front of it and the newly opened one on top. That's fantastic. I really like this change. I really like just all of this change, right? The starting menu bar has so many times screwed with new players who come in and go, where's the game? I think the game's open, but I can't find it. Well, now You're no longer have that an issue. You're going to have a big fat tactical map in your face. So that's cool. And having the keep tactical in background is going to resolve the problem that comes with that. So I think it's a very neat solution to the problem for sure. Next up, we have some changes to the mineral search window. This should now be more flexible in the VB6 version, as you can specify minimum amounts and accessibilities for every mineral, plus the amounts are now nicely lined up, so it is easier to compare different bodies. The window will order by the mineral with the highest minimum amount. The filter apply in left to right order, so if you specify gas giants only, it doesn't matter what you specify for asteroids. For example, here are all the bodies with at least 1,000 tons of uranium with 0.3 accessibility or higher. Here is the same, but with the added requirement of at least 1 ton of thorium. So, I love this change. I do love this change. The mineral search window, while extraordinarily useful, is also such a pain in the ass in VB6. It is so difficult to use. I mean, look how neat this is. It's so elegant. I love it. I love it. Okay, next we have an absolutely fucking amazing change that pretty much everyone loves. In C#, you can set a target capacity when using the continual capacity upgrade Shipyard's task. Oh, so good. Solves two huge problems. Number one, the million-ton shipyards that you end up when you forget to turn it off. And number two, the much more important problem, odd shipyard size numbers. Horrifying. Alright, moving along. In VB6 Aurora, the colony cost of Comets was not a major concern as there was no low-gravity infrastructure. For C#, Comets could potentially contain populations, albeit small ones. After all, the damn things are tiny. Therefore, temperature and colony cost now update as comets move towards and away from the sun. This means the population supported by infrastructure will change as well over time. The distance displayed on the system view is the current rather than maximum distance. You can flip between current and max colony cost on the system view, and it is displayed on colony summary of the economics window and on the body info tab of the tactical map. The unload colonist standing order will ignore comets, so civilian traffic will not attempt to place colonists on comets about to disappear into the void. Thank you. May also potentially increase the max size of comets to make things more interesting. Long term, then we may also get eccentricity to planetary orbits with a similar approach to the above. However, for now, the comets are going to be a little bit of a small-scale experiment to see how that goes. I really, really hope that we get eccentric planets one day, because that would be awesome. That would be so very cool. Next, moving right along, we have some changes to asteroid mining modules. They have been replaced with orbital mining modules. Each race has a new tech line called Maximum Orbital Mining Diameter. The starting tech is 100 kilometers, and each additional tech increases the size of the body that can be mined. So 125, 160, etc. The tech line finishes at 500 kilometers. Any system body, including asteroids, comets, moons, and small dwarf planets that fall within this diameter can be mined using orbital mining modules. This does mean that some asteroids will be too large for orbital mining, which is going to be interesting. The population summary shows parent body diameter and eligibility for orbital mining. On the system view, you can flag those bodies that are eligible for orbital mining. And on the mineral search window, you can choose to filter on eligible bodies. This is awesome. I love it. I love it for two reasons. Number one, it lets you use orbital miners to mine small moons, which is fantastic, because that way, if a body is too small to have a reasonable population on it to have manned mines, or is not able to be terraformed to allow manned mines, you don't have to shovel a whole bunch of auto mines onto an asteroid temporarily or onto a small moon temporarily to strip mine it. You can use orbital modules instead. The second reason why I love it is because presumably the maximum size, while it's currently limited at 500, can potentially be modified larger. Because it's a tech line, right? Presumably it should be in the database, and eventually they might have the potential to get that go higher, and then we could potentially get like planet cracking modules that can mine entire planets later on down the road. I think it would be a very interesting thing to get like planet crackers, because that will be cool. That will be really, really cool. Okay, last thing for today, we have changes to the Abandon Overhaul command. So in VB6, a fleet can issue an abandoned overhaul order, and 1 month later, any ships in overhaul within that fleet will be returned to a normal maintenance state. For C#, each individual ship or a whole fleet can choose to abandon overhaul at any point. It immediately returns to a normal maintenance state, but suffers severe after effects as the crew try to return the ship to normal working order. The ship has an overhaul factor that starts at 0.1 immediately following the abandoned overhaul decision, and increases to 1.0 over the course of 30 days. The increase takes place in each movement phase subpulse following movement in that subpulse. The overhaul factor is used in a similar way to crew grade and morale, and affects the following: weapon chance to hit, engine power, maximum shield strength, maintenance failure chance, jump shock length, and fleet training. For example, a ship 6 days after abandoning overhaul will have an overhaul factor of 0.2. Assuming no crew grade or morale modifier, engine power and maximum shield strength will be 20% of normal. Combat to hit chance will be 80% lower than normal. Maintenance failure will be 80% higher. Jump shock length will be 80% longer. And fleet training will be at 20% of normal. This rule allows ships to leave overhaul immediately if absolutely necessary, such as in emergencies, but the short-term penalties are considerable. The abandoned overhaul order has therefore been removed. Ships undergoing overhaul in C# Aurora are 0 speed for purposes of incoming missile or weapons fire, cannot fire weapons or launch missiles, and have 0 shield strength. And that is it for today. We are making pretty good headway, actually. We're about halfway through the change list, page 9, and the total list is about page 16, so we're about halfway now. We're actually more than halfway, so yeah, making good headway. Hopefully C# will drop in the next week or two, and yeah, we'll get to play it. So that's going to be great. In the meantime, we are continuing covering the changes for C# every day this month until it does actually launch. Down below, links to the official Aurora Discord, Reddit, and forums where you can join the discussion and the hype. And I will see you next time.